Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends, and welcome to JCB Live, a happy hour in the world of art. What is more exciting than creativity, than seeing what others may not see at first and bring it to the world? Representing incredible artists and bringing them to the world. This is what our wonderful Wendy Posner is doing because she is something very unique, a private art advisor. She's had her galleries for many years and decided now to privately curate it. So thanks to Michon, our very good friend, we got to meet Wendy, and we are very excited that she's with us today from LA, where she has her business. So Wendy, bonjour, and so great to see you. Welcome.
Bonjour. You too. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you today.
Well, what a great art you have behind you. Is it one of your wonderful artists you represent?
Thank you. The work that's behind me is by an internationally renowned artist by the name of John Baldessari. John, unfortunately, is deceased. He was in his 90s when he passed away, but his works are in many, many major museum and private collections internationally. And the piece behind me actually was featured in a Wall Street Journal article on one of the chain smokers, which we had helped to assist curate the art for.
Wow, incredible. Looks fabulous. And I love how your face is nested between the two others. So it's all about the senses. So cheers.
Thank you.
Wendy, welcome to the world of
Salut.
wine and art. Santé. So, how was it, Wendy, to grow up into such a creative community?
I think I have to say I was extremely fortunate. My mom was really a pioneer in founding Posner Fine Art in the 1960s. She had a gallery that was based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And having the opportunity to grow up around all different artists coming in and out of our home, and also her gallery through the years, really made such a huge impression on myself and me ending up ultimately in the business with her. And it was fantastic because I was able to travel extensively all over the world to visit artists, to attend art fairs, and to different cultural events, of which now I share with my kids as well.
This is so great. So what made you wanting to do this? Because it's not often that you necessarily want to do what your parents are doing. So what really motivated your heart to say, this is the future I want to have?
Well, actually, that's funny that you asked that question, because initially I would have said I never wanted to go into business with my mom, nor into the art world as a fine art advisor or dealer. And I actually ended up in the business not because of my mom. When I moved to Los Angeles after graduating from college, I was really interested in getting involved in doing public relations and advertising. And at that time, when I came to interview, a friend of my mom's had a gallery here in Los Angeles and said, why don't you come work for us while you're looking for a position in an ad agency or PR firm? So that is ultimately how I ended up in business. Once I went to work for them, I subsequently went to work for 4 other galleries in advance of working for my mom and working side by side with her. So as I said, I never wanted to have the business handed to me on a silver platter. I think I earned my stripes in advance of joining forces with her. But my mom was obviously an extremely amazing mentor as well.
So what type of mentorship and influence you would define she had on you?
I think that, being number one, a female in business, and ultimately having started her firm in the 1960s, she was really ahead of the curve, and being internationally renowned in the fine art community based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which a lot of people would never think as a hub of contemporary art. She also always taught me about networking and about being able to be out there and to meet new people, because you never know who you'll meet. But she also exposed me to so much in terms of, how to do business, about the art of negotiation, but also about building longevity and long-term relationships with your clients and friends.
That's right. And the relationship is with the clients, but with the artist as well. Which side do you like the most? Because you got to secure very consistent, authentic, loyal relationship with the artist, and he or she needs to feel very comfortable by who represents her or him, and then obviously the client. So which side do you like the most and why?
I think that they're both really interesting and they both have their challenges. As part of being almost an agent for our artists, we're representing them and being able to promote and to present their work. And so they need to trust that we've got their best interest in mind, but also it's about the established relationships of the galleries, other private dealers that we work with, artists, and we have lots of other resources in terms of some of our special projects we do. So, those relationships are really important, but that also benefits our clients as well, because our clients know that we are going to bring them, new innovative artists, but also even if we're dealing in the high-end blue chip art market, that we're going to be able to work on behalf of their best interest in giving them offerings of works for sale, and trying to negotiate and work out the best prices. But also a lot of it comes down to education. So that there's the education of the client where we're, taking them through step by step and teaching them about art. But also on the art side, we also have to do that as well and open up new opportunities and be able to expand opportunities for the artists by looking at new ways of doing business for them too.
So fascinating to be just right in between. So you basically advise your customers to build an art collection with in mind the visual appeal. Of course, they need to like the art, but as well the appreciation of the art over time, right? Just like an investment.
Exactly. I think that would be very similar to building a beautiful wine collection. That, even in terms of wine and art, there are a lot of similarities between the two. And a lot of it is educating. Let's say if you're talking about a wine, you're talking about a palate, you're teaching about regions of, where different grapes are grown, which, is information to educate your clientele that would build wine collections and why they should acquire certain bottles or from certain regions internationally. That would be very similar in my industry also, where we, will take our clients and sometimes, for example, if we have a new young client that we're starting to educate, that we'll say to them, maybe this year, why don't you put away $2,500 towards a piece of art? The next year, you add to that pot and buy another piece. Collections aren't built overnight. It takes time. And the level of sophistication will change as one becomes more familiar and comfortable with art, and also being able to visually learn about all different types of art, because each individual collector may have different interests, which would be the same with wine too.
Exactly. So as you do, vernissage and presentation within galleries or people's home, you drink wine as well, right? So, and I know you're very
Absolutely. I think they go hand in hand.
mouth to mouth.
They,
So how would you
they
describe
definitely do.
how would you describe this lovely JCB 69? This is our very good friend Michonne's favorite bubbles. So I'm sure you've had it with her. So what would be, from an artistic standpoint, a description you could give of this wine? Because I know you're very wine savvy, so I'm excited to hear.
I don't really know how wine savvy I am, but I could probably at least give some sort of description. I mean, when I first of all, when I opened the bottle, it sprayed all over, and my dog got a little taste of it off the coffee table, and he was really enjoying it this morning before we got on.
Love it.
But in terms of, I mean, the flavors and the notes that I, find in this is that it's very light. It's got a crisp flavor. It's got a little bit of fruity, maybe a little bit of strawberry, hint of citrus. It's very refreshing. And I think it's perfect all year round, but probably during the summer it would be also excellent when it's warm outside.
Wow. I love it. So maybe when you do art shows we're going to provide you with JCB 69. Whether it's warm or cold, there's always a reason to have bubbles, right? And celebrate with them.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that we have to be really optimistic and positive this year moving forward. So it's a good time to start celebrating.
Absolutely. So talking about that, have people buying art in 2020? Have people spent more time discussing investments with you and collections and taken more time to furnish the walls of their house?
It has definitely been a really interesting time. You know, at the onset, when COVID shutdown started happening at the end of February, beginning of March, we really assessed what was going to happen moving forward within our industry. Being in a luxury business and art not being a necessity, we were not sure what the outcome was going to be, dependent upon how long COVID went on and what the shutdowns would ultimately have an effect on our business. But based upon our assessment, we were able to find some new niches and areas of business that we had not, really delved into before. And also because people were spending more time at home, they were interested in making their spaces really beautiful. We have been, knock on wood, very fortunate. Our business did very well in 2020, despite the pandemic. And even now, moving into 2021, we have had some very exciting new opportunities that have come forth that will set us up beautifully for the coming year.
Wow, congratulations. So in fact, it's been beneficial to go through this time where people spend more time at home. They want to beautify their house and they want to, do you think people actually want now to spend more time in their homes? Do you think that's going to become a definite trend of the future?
I think that it will. I think that one of the things that I have felt personally is that, we all needed a little bit of a reset. We needed to spend more time with our family, being able to spend time in our homes. Everybody is always moving so fast because we feel we have to go to all these different events. We need to be out there meeting new people constantly in my industry, networking and social events, exhibitions, art fairs have always played a very important part of our business. But I think because of the onset of the pandemic, we actually have been able to have more thoughtful conversation and longer term, and establishing longer term relationships with our clients by being able to take more time out to really sit down and to spend more time with them, even if it's virtually. It's made us rethink how we do our business, how we're promoting. And also, we have found, and we're probably very fortunate because we didn't have a physical gallery space, that we were able to adapt very easy to the new conditions that were, in the marketplace.
That's great. And more times with our cats and dogs. This is why it's a good time. And you facilitated the transition that your dog got JCB 69 on his body. Now let's go. Frenchie. Talking about dogs, Wendy, when you come and see us in Napa Valley, and Michonne loves Frenchie Winery, we had to create a winery for our dogs because we love dogs. And we wanted to make sure that everybody who has a dog or a cat can bring it to the winery, have them be in a little area where they can enjoy themselves. Meanwhile, you tour and taste wine. So this is Frenchie Winery. So as you have a dog, cheers to your dog.
Cheers. Thank you.
So this is a very famous, talking about artists. Yeah, we love the screw cap. Talking about artists, this is Carol Liu, who is a great artist. She's a wonderful painter, and she does the caricature of animals into.
It's so much fun.
Yes, and we're going to have Carol, in fact, on the live at some stage in the future because we want her to show us how quickly she could do this. And as you can see, this is Frenchie as beautiful Betsy Ross. Have you noticed that?
Exactly. It's great with her sewing the stars onto the American flag. But I love that it's a new twist on a very sort of traditional portraiture with the whimsical aspect of having the dog instead of somebody as a person.
Thank you. So, Wendy, before we go into trends of art, how is it to sell art through without having a gallery? Because obviously you were already organized for the virtual world we live in, or the digital world, but how is it to convince people to collect or to see arts through the computer screen and all that? How do you do this?
I would say that that's definitely something that's been very interesting. And in terms of, one of the big parts of our business was attending art fairs internationally. And as a part of that, you have, the human connection where, as a gallerist, you can actually have a conversation and dialogue with the collectors as they're coming through the art fairs. And there's stories about all of the art. So how do you tell the story about the art, the artist digitally? And so you have to be much more creative in how you do the presentation of the artwork to potential collectors. But also, I think that a big part of that is the established relationships so that your clients have trust in you that what you're presenting digitally actually is the correct representation of the works by that artist. I think that one of the most difficult thing is that there is something about the tangible aspect of being within the art community, where if you're looking at a painting, you want to see the brush strokes. Or if you're walking around a sculpture, how do you engage with a three-dimensional object digitally to get the same perception? And as the technology is developed, there's a lot of different programs that have come out of, I think, I would say, out of the real estate industry that are now being implemented in the fine art industry to create these virtual gallery spaces where you can actually walk through them like you're attending exhibition in a gallery space where there's information on each work of art. So it's a different way to be able to present. I would say that for older collectors, it's much more challenging because they're not used to the technology,
That's
where
right.
younger generations utilize the technology on a daily basis. So their experience and the information and how they sort of view it and use it is very different. So you have to be able to sort of bridge that gap. And I think that that goes back to education experience, also spending, an enormous amount of time with your clientele, and being able to hold their hand through this process. But they also need to trust you in terms of the presentation of the work to make them feel comfortable buying something digitally versus seeing it in person.
That's right. And do you have sometimes disappointment when they say, "Oh, I love it digitally," and they receive it at home and it's not exactly that? Does that have happened?
On occasion, that has happened, but that's part of also the relationship that if, for example, we're working with a client and if they're going to acquire something and if they have it, let's say, shipped to their house on consignment, if they're not happy with the piece when they see it in person, that you have to still stand behind the work, in advance of your client taking it so that they know that they don't have to acquire it if it's not exactly what they want when they see it in person, to be able to take it back and to be able to present other works to them.
That's right. So you stand behind everything, of course.
100%. You have to.
So do you think your dog would enjoy that wine?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. He's got a very good palate. He likes anything that has fruits and vegetables and has, citrus flavors to it. What's nice about this, it's really light. This is a perfect wine that I would actually pair if I'm doing chicken or fish for dinner or in the afternoon with friends hanging out on a Sunday. It would be fantastic to have outdoors.
Wow. I'm coming for dinner.
I would
So
love to host and have you. It'd be my delight.
thank you. And vice versa, Wendy. So where do you, for you, you've been in this world since birth, really, and you've studied art. You are an art expert. Where do you see today in the 21st century, in 2020, creativity going and how creative is the world of art right now?
Oh my gosh, I think that this has been an extremely innovative time. Obviously, the influence of what's been happening globally around the pandemic, also regarding different, political movements that, a lot of artists have engaged in some of the activism that has been taking place internationally during this period of time. And also because the artists and makers and creators have had more time in their studios. So it has given them an opportunity to really focus on their work. And we are just seeing unbelievable work come out of this period of time. And for me, moving forward, there's also been this interesting integration of art, design, culture, travel, that
That's
we
right.
are seeing fashion, that there's collaborations happening between all of these different creators and makers, which makes it really exciting because art can take so many different forms. And I think it's really an innovative, phenomenal time. It's a time of rebirth and reinvention right now. There are no boundaries. It's sort of the Wild West, and it's a great time for experimentation as well.
So, what is to you the latest within your gallery, the Posner Gallery, that you love as far as new artists and a new vision? And obviously, as we have the chat, we will indicate to everybody your website so they can obviously visit your gallery as well online. Who would you say is really representing what you just described right now?
It's really interesting. One of the new photographers that we're working with and representing is Julien Lennon's photography internationally. Julien, we started working with him about a year ago. And during this period of time, we've been looking at new opportunities for Julien. And because not only is he a musician, he is a philanthropist, and photography is a huge passion for him. And a lot of the work that he does is based around humanitarian issues as well as ecology, sustainability, and dealing with indigenous cultures. That right now, this is such a transformational time for he and his work that he's doing. That it's fantastic because we're able to work with him and have his work cross over all of the different interests from the photography, music, as well as the philanthropic side. So we're working on some incredible programming that will be launching this spring, and I'll be excited to present it at that time.
Wow, great. So you don't like artists, right? It's we're not in an era where there's, because when we look at the art movements and art history, there were some periods which were fairly dull and fairly uncreative. So you would say we absolutely not in that era.
I would say we're in a renaissance.
Wow,
I
this
think
is
that
so
it's really
exciting.
it's an amazing time. Yeah. I think
So,
that, right now it's been amazing, even just looking at what's going on in terms of graffiti and street art around the world, whether it is about political messages that are being shared to the innovation of using the digital technology for
yes.
presenting artist work, the opportunities, it's really global, it's really international, where things maybe were a little bit more regional or national. Now we've got outreach on a completely different level.
What I'm so glad to hear as well, the merger of digital and using new technology to produce great art as well. So you see that as a big movement, obviously, of the 21st century.
I think that it opens up a lot of doors because art sometimes can be limited in terms of the people who can enjoy and view it. And because of the new online programming, I could attend and look at an exhibition, let's say in China, that maybe I couldn't travel to China, but now it's accessible digitally. So therefore, there are many more opportunities to experience and to explore art because
Mhm.
of the technology.
That's great. Would you see and say as well, and see in Asia, an unbelievable creativity coming out of of China as an example?
It's been very interesting. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've traveled to China many times and started a long time ago traveling throughout Southeast Asia. Part of that is also goes back to my mom. My mother was very interested in indigenous tribes. So we would
Yes.
travel to very remote parts of the world. And within those cultures, also, art is such a prevalent part of, what their history and cultures are. But in China, for example, there is a huge movement within contemporary art. There contemporary artists that are Chinese who are really getting known very much so on the international art scene, but also in terms of presenting to new collectors there artists that are, from, let's say, the United States, Canada, South America, that are being collected. Because there's opportunity to expose and to educate new collectors there who is relatively new for them in
Yes.
China. And the market's very strong there. And I'm sure for wine as well, that it's a great opportunity because wine collecting has become very popular there too.
Very much, and specifically the red wines, as you know. So, the
Really?
Asian really love the red wines of the world, whether it's French wines or, of course, like this one, Napa Valley. Frenchie has been very popular for us in Asia because they love, of course, the dog and French bulldogs and the fun of it. And then it's a very serious one at the same time. So they love it. So cheers on the next Napa Valley expression for you.
Cheers. And I love the bottle. The bottle is absolutely beautiful. I love the
Thank you.
Frenchie
And
on the front of it.
as you
It's
can see,
great.
this
It's
is my
very
little,
iconic.
yes, indeed, it's my little baby Frenchie, who is now 6 years old and who is stretching, as you could see on the label, as a piece of jewelry as well. So we promote it as a jewelry piece, and we promote it, of course, on the bottle. So the bottle is
Which
adorned
is
with jewelry.
fantastic.
Thank
Well,
you.
and that goes back to the melding of art, cuisine, wine, culture, so it crosses all different boundaries as well.
That's right. So where do you see the trend now in terms of the buyers of art, the younger demographic? Obviously, as a very famous organization that you run, you have all your traditional collectors that you've had for many decades. But the newcomers of art, the younger generation, where are they going? What are they buying? And what interests them?
Oh my gosh, that's a really interesting question because I think that it's still really individual in terms of
Yes,
the person. But I think that the newer upcoming collectors that are younger, they're very savvy. They're doing a lot of research online in advance of acquiring a piece of art. So they are interested in knowing the history of an artist. They're interested in everything from the medium. They're interested in whether or not it's going to maintain value. So the younger collectors, because of the way that they're used to buying and being very different, they're spending a lot of time researching in advance of acquiring something.
I see.
And I think that it's a different than, an impulse buy when you walk into a store and you're like, I have to have that pair of jeans. They really want to be educated and they really want to know what the longevity of the artist is, what the viability in the auction markets are. So they're taking their time and doing their research and homework in advance of purchasing.
It's similar, interestingly enough, in the world of wine. We see the younger generation in general very interested in sustainability and organics and very well researched into why they're buying a wine. And they're always ready to spend more on one bottle rather than three, as long as it's better and it follows certain sets of values and ethics. So it's interesting that correlation is quite similar.
I would absolutely say so. And I think the other thing too is that younger generations are interested in the experience. The experiential aspect of any acquisition also plays a big part of their educational process. So, in terms of, let's say they were attending an art fair previously, they want to have that experience associated with what they're acquiring. So,
Mm,
how do you create those experiences for them as a part of the educational process?
that's right. Well, that's great. So, on that note, where what is your vision of art very known for? What type of art would you say you are the experts and the most legacy you will be building on?
That's a good question. Because our business is very diversified, we don't just deal with private clients. We also
Yes.
do a lot of work with corporations, everything from hospitality, healthcare, financial institutions. So, since we have such a broad range of types of clientele, each of those niches would have different sort of parameters in terms of what it will be moving forward and the collectability. So, for example, we're working on a hotel project right now. And within the hotel industry right now, we have found that the new hotels that are still under construction, they have to finish and they need to acquire art. But we're also even seeing within that, right now, because hotels are low or no occupancy, that they're refreshing their brands. And so that in the next 24 to 36 months from now, they'll come back new. Before, hotels used to be cookie cutter. Every Hyatt, every Hilton used to look the same.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to create much more bespoke experiences. So it
Mhm.
may be regional, the aesthetic and design is based on locale of the demographic of the clients that would come to that hotel based on location. And so it makes it much more unique and more fun for us to be able to help to curate and to be able to expose and guide our clients both on the corporate side as well as the private side in that same way.
That's very exciting and refreshing to see that the uniformity of a lot of those public places we've seen now is going to finally evolve to become more individual per property and per style. I'm excited to hear this because it could get very boring to find the same format and the same design all around the world when the world is so rich
Absolutely.
and different.
I think that you can push the boundaries in so many different ways with the intersection of art, culture, design. We work a lot with architects and interior designers, so we add another layer to creating their vision for their clients on any level. So it's really fun to be able to expose them to new things that they wouldn't have the means to be able to tap into because of it being such a specialized niche.
That's right. So, Wendy, how would you describe this wine as an art movement?
Well, I think going back, first of all, the bottle is really beautiful, and I love the collaboration of the fact that it's something that's almost like a functional piece of art with the Frenchie and about what you discussed previously of it being a piece of jewelry. It is an adorned bottle, which is great. But in terms of the wine itself, I mean, I love that it's got a crisp, fresh flavor. It's got a little bit of woodsy, raspberry, maybe a little chocolate in it from, what I can taste. And it's a very clean palate.
Well, thank you so much for this great description. I love it. So, Wendy, you've done so much in terms of your personal life, your business, for so many great artists, so many great collectors. What is your dream next?
Oh my gosh. My dream next, what I really would love to do, and I had spoken with my kids about this a long time ago, I would love to take my kids and travel around the world for a year.
Hmm,
The hope originally was to have done it before they both went to college, but that unfortunately didn't pan out. But I would still love to have the opportunity, even if it's for 6 months, to take my kids and to travel and to spend time with them, visiting new places that we haven't been before. So that would be one of my dreams to do.
Well, that's an exciting dreams. What where do you see the world going now? And I know I've asked you a similar question earlier, but not exactly in the same way. In terms of major trend as far as promoting art, we've seen an enormous growth on the auction market, and you used that word earlier. Besides physical galleries, the way you promote it and auction, where do you see the big way of outlets for arts?
I think that's an interesting question. Like you said, I mean, first of all, the auction market, even through the pandemic in the last year, the auction market for art has been very high, much more so
Yes,
than I think anybody could have anticipated. And I think that wine probably would fit in that category as well, in terms of the
yes,
wine auctions that have taken place. That people are looking to divest their money into different markets, and art has become almost another asset class, where before art wasn't collected as an investment, as an asset, in the same way stocks were. So that's something that's relatively a new way of thinking. But I think that in terms of, the direction that art promotion, exhibition programming, curation is moving in terms of digital, that we are going to continue to see incredible advancements within technology to be able to recreate opportunities to experience art as though you're in the physical gallery space and or museum exhibition, or even one of the major art fairs internationally. I think that this period of time has given us advancements in so many areas that we never would have explored before within the art world, because before it was about seeing it in the physical space and being able to experience and having the human connection on a one-to-one, even having a conversation with a gallerist and or art advisor in person while
yes.
looking at the physical artwork. And now it's transforming and taking just a new form of display.
It's going to be so exciting to see this new world, and thanks to this new technology unfolding to new ways of looking at art. I love it. So now, Wendy, big message.
Yeah, it's very
Last
exciting.
question. We've abused a lot of your great time, precious time together, and we thank you so much. What would be your message to all of us, to the world, when you look at the world with creativity and obviously an artistic eye as yours?
I would have to say that, for myself, exposure and experience as much as possible. Art can be found everywhere. And so to keep your eyes open, your ears open, and to be able to experience it through all the different senses, which is something that you promote a lot within your wines as well, is such an important and valuable part of the connection to art, and whether it takes place in the form of fashion, architecture, design, food, and culinary, that art is everywhere. And I think that art can change the world, and people should slow down a little bit and really enjoy it.
I love it. And with a glass of wine, of course. So,
Absolutely, 100%.
Wendy, thank you so much. We cannot wait and to have all our friends connect and digitally look at your beautiful organization and your fabulous eye, the great artists you represent and advice you give. So we wish you an amazing 2021, and we cannot wait to see you in Napa
Thank
Valley
you.
and enjoy
Same
more
here.
wine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me as a guest today. Really appreciate it. And salut.